Virginia Giuffre's dad and attorney are reportedly questioning how she died. Giuffre was a vocal and visible accuser of Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew. She was found dead on her farm outside Perth, Australia over the weekend, less than a month after she made headlines again after posting a picture of herself in a hospital bed saying she had just days to live. There are also now reportedly questions about what will happen to the money that Prince Andrew paid her in an out-of-court settlement in 2022. We're on the case presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. We have a lot to get to in this story involving Virginia Giuffre. But before we talk about that case, I want to tell you about our new podcast that just dropped on Wondery Plus. It is Karen, the Retrial. It's really the best place for a recap of the Karen Read case, everything that is going on in her retrial that is literally happening right now, and what's to come as the new trial is heating up. You can find Karen, the Retrial exclusively on the Wondery app or in Apple Podcasts. You can click the link in the description below to listen right now. Now let's get to what we know at this point involving Virginia Roberts Giuffre. On April 25th, she was found dead at her home outside Perth, Australia. Giuffre was American, but she moved to Australia in 2020 with her husband. The couple had 3 children, all teenagers. Giuffre and her husband had been in the middle of a custody dispute at the time of her death. Some members of Giuffre's family say they aren't ready to determine how she died. Her dad, who's named Sky Roberts, told TMZ he wants her death investigated. He points to social media posts like this one that his daughter made in 2019 where she writes, quote, "I am making it publicly known that in no way, shape, or form am I suicidal. I have made this known to my therapist and GP. If something happens to me, in the sake of my family, do not let this go away and help me protect them. Too many evil people want to see me quieted." Giuffre's lawyer also spoke to UK media outlet The Sun and said, quote, "When I got the call, I was like, are you joking? Because there was no sign that was something she was considering." To understand what Virginia Giuffre may have been dealing with at the time of her death, you have to go back to the beginning to understand how so many people learned her name. Giuffre claimed that Jeffrey Epstein trafficked her when she was a minor. She says that she was forced to have sex with Prince Andrew 3 times when she was just 17 years old. This is the now infamous picture that was included in her lawsuit against the prince. It shows Giuffre and Prince Andrew and convicted trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell smiling at the camera in the background. Prince Andrew and Giuffre settled out of court in 2022 after she sued Andrew the year prior. Prince Andrew has denied sleeping with Giuffre. In fact, he denied ever meeting her. In a now infamous 2019 interview with the BBC, he said this about Virginia Giuffre when she accused him of having sex with her in 2001 in London.
"I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady. None whatsoever."
You don't remember meeting her?
No.
Giuffre had claimed the prince bought her drinks and they dined together and danced together at a posh, members-only nightclub in London. Prince Andrew said he never spent time with Giuffre, and he claimed the date she claimed that they were together, he was actually with his kids. He went on to say that he didn't know where the bar was in the nightclub because he says he doesn't drink. And in what was an infamous moment in that interview, Andrew disputed Giuffre's description of him profusely sweating. He said this to the BBC in that 2019 interview.
There's a slight problem with the sweating because I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat, or I didn't sweat at the time.
Giuffre claimed that she met the prince through Ghislaine Maxwell. The former socialite is now a convicted sex offender. Here's her mugshot from 2022 at the Metro Detention Center in New York. She is currently serving 20 years in prison on 5 sex trafficking charges related to the now dead Jeffrey Epstein. He, of course, died in his jail cell in 2019 after he was arrested on federal sex trafficking charges. The medical examiner said he hung himself. I want to take a moment and talk about something important, and that is high blood pressure. Did you know that that is the #1 risk factor for mortality, and 1 in 2 adults have it, but many don't realize they're at risk. It is truly a silent killer that can lurk unnoticed until it's too late. But we do have some good news. You don't have to rely on big pharma to manage it. 120 Life is a blend of great tasting superfruit juices that's been shown to actually lower blood pressure. It is trusted by hundreds of doctors and thousands of people who have seen real results. It's trackable too. Use a simple blood pressure monitor to see the changes yourself, and it's completely risk-free. So if you don't see lower numbers in 2 weeks, you get your money back. In a world where every second counts, don't let high blood pressure be the risk that you never saw coming. You can take control today. Go to 120life.com/onthecase and use promo code OTC. You can also scan this QR code on your screen to save 15%. Giuffre told CBS News this in 2020 about Maxwell.
She is a monster. She's worse than Epstein. She did things even worse than Epstein did.
In the wake of Giuffre's allegations and the out-of-court settlement, Prince Andrew resigned from public roles with the royal family in 2020. His mom, Queen Elizabeth, stripped Andrew of his royal and military titles in 2022 before she died later that year. It's important to note that now that Virginia Giuffre has died, there could be a court battle brewing over who gets the rest of the money from that out-of-court settlement involving Prince Andrew. The UK media outlet The Sun reports that Giuffre's now estranged husband, who she was reportedly divorcing at the time, could be at odds with members of her family over who could get that money. Now, we started to get more of a glimpse into the challenges Virginia Giuffre was having living in Australia on March 30th of this year when she posted this image with a caption saying she had just 4 days to live. Now, we had to blur some of her injuries due to YouTube policies, but in this picture, you can see the bruising all over her face and her chest, and she's sitting in what appears to be a hospital bed. The caption is 174 words that has brought her story back to the headlines. That caption read, quote, "This year has been the worst start to a new year, but I won't bore anyone with the details, but I think it is important to note that when a school bus driver comes at you driving 110 kilometers as we were slowing for a turn, no matter what your car is made of, it might as well be a tin can. I've gone into kidney renal failure. They've given me 4 days to live, transferring me to a specialist hospital in urology. I'm ready to go, just not until I see my babies one last time. But you know what they say about wishes. Bleep in one hand and wish in the other. I guarantee it's still going to be bleep at the end of the day. Thank you all for being wonderful people of the world and for being a great part of my life. God bless you all. XX Virginia." Now, after her Instagram post went viral, a family spokesperson issued a statement offering some clarification from Virginia's end. That statement said, quote, "Virginia thanks everyone for the outpouring of love and support. She is overwhelmed with gratitude. Today she remains in serious condition while receiving medical care. On March 24th in rural Western Australia, a school bus hit the car in which she was riding. The police were called, but said that there was no one available to come to the scene. They asked if anyone was injured and suggested if they were, they should make their way to the hospital." Giuffre's statement then goes on to say that she actually didn't mean to post this caption saying that she had 4 days to live publicly. Instead, she meant for it to be on a private Facebook page. Australian police told media outlets that no one was reported injured in the crash and the car involved sustained roughly $2,000 in damage, and the bus driver had reported the incident the next day. The aftermath of that story brought to light a court battle that she was having with her estranged husband, Robert Giuffre. According to People, Robert hit Virginia with a restraining order in February that prevented her from seeing their 3 teenage children. Robert also accused Virginia of violating that order. Virginia accused her estranged husband of physical abuse. Sky News in the UK says the couple separated in 2023. Robert's attorney had no comment for People, who exclusively spoke with members of Giuffre's family. Prince Andrew has yet to make a comment about the death of Virginia Giuffre. But he has had someone in his corner who has repeatedly attacked Virginia on social media. Her name is Victoria Hervey. She's a model, a socialite, and a former girlfriend of Prince Andrew. Now, when you look at her Instagram, you can see she has a playlist of story posts that attack Giuffre since that bus crash in March. One of the posts read, quote, "The pain caused by her lies, destroying lives and tearing families apart, all for money is no small thing. She has a lot to answer for. I call this divine judgment by God. People often say karma has a way of catching up. And, quote, as Ghislaine Maxwell put it, Virginia is a fantasist. Remember, Maxwell is serving 20 years in prison. She is now a convicted sex offender. But even in death, Hervey continues to post about Virginia Giuffre. She posted this with a headline from an Australian media outlet, and she just writes, karma. Giuffre's family did release an official statement after her death saying that Virginia took her own life. As far as what is believed to be a large amount of money that Prince Andrew paid Giuffre after she sued him in 2021 to settle the case, the British media outlet The Sun writes that Giuffre's family and her estranged husband could square off in court in a fight over that money. Joining us now to talk more about this case is civil trial attorney David Ring. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. I know we spoke when Virginia Giuffre was back in the headlines after the Instagram post where she said around March 30th that she had 4 days to live. And this story took a really sad turn since then. What was your initial reaction when you saw the headline that she had passed away?
Oh, just like everybody else, I was very, very surprised and shocked. I mean, what a tragedy. It's just terrible that this happened. A month ago, we were talking about her and this mysterious Instagram post about her being involved in a apparently a serious car accident involving her being hit by a bus. And it turned out, she said she was having renal failure, and turns out the bus accident maybe wasn't as serious as it was portrayed. So there was a lot of unanswered questions a month or so ago, and we were all concerned about her. I remember talking about, hey, she's having some mental health struggles, and we all hope she gets the help she needs. And to see this happening, a month or so later, it's just very sad.
What do you make of her attorney and her dad, who spoke to TMZ? Both seem to be raising questions about how she died. And the attorney saying that she showed no signs of having issues where she would take her own life, it seemed. And then her dad had pointed to, in 2019, she put a post out on then Twitter saying that, if I die, it wasn't suicide. What do you make of some questions being raised about how Virginia Giuffre died?
Well, look, there are so many unanswered questions at this point, but I think what her attorney, and the attorney is someone who apparently has only represented her for a few months. This isn't someone who was
Yeah.
her attorney in the Epstein case. It's someone in Australia who'd been representing her since maybe January. I think it's what we know is apparently there was some pills involved, and that she may have overdosed on pills. Was that intentional? Was that an accident? I mean, we know a lot of people, accidentally can overdose on pills, or did she do it with the intention to kill herself? We don't know. And I think the lawyer was expressing shock that it happened and that it's being characterized as a suicide because, according to the lawyer who apparently had talked to her a lot, she seemed to be in good spirits, was looking forward to things on the horizon in her life, and this just came out of nowhere. So I understand the shock she feels.
Yeah, and we understood since that post on this bus crash where there were questions about how serious that crash was, and then why that post was put out on social media, but then all the details come to light of what had been going on in her life in Australia with her husband. They separated in 2023. What stood out to you in the back and forth she was having with her now then estranged husband, and how that potentially led to some of the challenges she was having?
Well, again, a lot of unanswered questions here, but what we seem to know is there was a lot of marital strife that was taking place in the last months, or even last year or so. And according to reports, there was the husband who they're still married. They're separated, but still legally married, and estranged. But the husband had apparently obtained a restraining order against Virginia, and the restraining order also prevented her from seeing her three kids, and the kids are, I think, 19 and 15 and 14, something like that. They're all teenagers, and so that was going on, and again, reports were that obviously that was a huge hardship on her to have a court order saying you're not allowed to see your children. And then there was another report that she had allegedly violated this court restraining order
Right.
by somehow contacting her estranged husband, whether it's by a phone call or text or something like that. So there was a lot of turmoil going on in Virginia's life in the last few weeks and months, including this mysterious accident with the bus and her health. And the photo she posted that she had these serious bruises on her face. She was in the hospital. So clearly she was under a lot of duress, a lot of stress. There's a lot of negative things taking place in her life.
And Virginia first came forward around 2010, accusing Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell of sex trafficking, and that she was a victim of it. She was really one of the faces of the victims who was not afraid to go in front of a camera. How do you remember? How will you remember Virginia Giuffre?
She's a hero I'm a lawyer who has represented victims of sexual abuse for over 30 years. And anytime a victim comes forward and takes on their perpetrator, especially in a public manner, in a public lawsuit, that is a courageous thing to do. That is a very difficult thing to do. And with Virginia, you can up those stakes by 1,000 because hers was incredibly high profile. I mean,
Right.
Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew, I mean, those were worldwide headlines. And she took them on and she was victorious in the cases. And she made her name public. She didn't use a Jane Doe or an alias. And so everyone knew her identity. So we've all seen the infamous photo of Prince Andrew and with his arm around her when she was 17 years old, and with Ghislaine Maxwell in the background. And so what Virginia accomplished in those cases is incredible, and it clearly took a toll on her. Clearly, I mean, so look, she's a hero to all victims because she came forward and she persevered, and she obtained justice in the cases that she brought against these incredibly high profile figures.
And she wasn't just a voice. I mean, she was a key piece of evidence in some of the cases that were brought forward. For people who may not, you obviously remember the Jeffrey Epstein case, how he died. Ghislaine Maxwell is now in prison. From an evidence standpoint, in the cases against them and the case that was pending against Jeffrey Epstein, how important was her testimony beyond just being that public face that people saw, but within the courtroom?
Her testimony was monumental. It was critical to the case. I mean, there was only a few victims that were able to testify and come forward and tell their stories about being sex trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein, and in the second case by Ghislaine Maxwell. So Virginia's testimony was crucial to both of those investigations and cases, and obviously was the centerpiece of the allegations made against Prince Andrew. And so she was um, incredibly important from an evidentiary standpoint to those investigations and those cases.
We were looking at some of the posts today from someone who is Prince Andrew's ex-girlfriend, Victoria Hervey. She's a British socialite. I know we talked about some of the posts that she had last time that we spoke about this, just attacking Virginia Giuffre's story, seemed to point and speak glowingly of Ghislaine Maxwell, who's in prison on sex trafficking charges, a conviction of that. How does that public attack from someone who is a socialite, how does that impact a victim? And it's a unique case for Virginia Giuffre, but I'm sure in your line of work, you've seen cases where you do have these people who accuse someone's story in saying that it didn't happen or that they're lying against someone who's more powerful.
Absolutely. I mean, it happens every case because you're going to have everyone who supports the perpetrator calling the victim a liar and a fraud. And so when Virginia came forward and brought her accusations against Prince Andrew, and everyone knew Virginia's identity, you can imagine what she must have seen on social media and on the internet from his supporters that really, went after her and accused her of all sorts of nasty things, of being a liar and making things up and all of that. And you can imagine the toll that that would take on a person to see that kind of just nasty verbal abuse day in and day out. And as you brought up, Chris, it hasn't ended. Even now, some ex-girlfriend of Prince Andrew has for some bizarre reason made it important to completely still talk trash about Virginia and saying these incredibly nasty, outrageous things about her, even after her death, saying things like karma and things like that on her social media posts. Absolutely bizarre, but very, very sad, and you can see the toll that takes on a victim. It's unfair, and that makes them all the more courageous for coming forward and persevering through things like that.
I know that Virginia had a somewhat complicated family dynamic. Her family released a statement initially saying that she had taken her own life. Then her father speaks to TMZ and says, well, wait a second, there could be some questions. We talked about the lawyer there. She was reportedly in the middle of a divorce. She had been separated from her husband in Australia, but there was she was in the process of officially being divorced. You have this undisclosed amount of money that Prince Andrew paid Virginia Giuffre when they settled out of court in 2022. It seems complicated with the parties that could make a claim for that. What could happen to that money if there was some sort of court dispute that took place?
Well. So here's the thing. Again, a lot of unanswered questions. But did Virginia have a will? We don't know that yet. But if she did, and it was a valid, legitimate will, okay, that's going to control her assets and where the inheritance goes to. Although even that could be challenged by other people who, family members who maybe weren't part of the will or given anything in the will, and they could come forward and say, oh, the will's fraudulent, or it was, it's not a legitimate will, things like that. If there's no will, then, my understanding of Australia law, similar to a lot of states here in America, is that because she wasn't formally divorced yet, even though she is separated from her husband, they were not divorced. He's first in line to receive her assets. And so, again, that could be something that, because that probably has to wind through the courts, that's something that we could find out a whole lot more about this settlement from Prince Andrew, because the public does not yet know the exact sum that Prince Andrew paid. And so, there's a lot of speculation out there that it was in the 8 figures and things like that, but no one has ever actually announced it and known for sure. And so if this dispute with Virginia's inheritance goes into the courts, we may very well find out what amount Prince Andrew paid to her in a settlement.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting point, and we'll see how that plays out, and then how that, of course, Prince Andrew no longer officially doing royal duties, but what would that amount add to his legacy that's already tarnished in the United Kingdom. Lastly, David, whenever we talk about Jeffrey Epstein, there's an incredible interest that people have, even years later in this case, questions about how he died, and now, even through statements from a lawyer, kind of adds to that fire of speculation, of conspiracy that people seem to have in this case. You followed this case for a long time. What is it about Jeffrey Epstein and everyone who is associated with him that creates that interest and almost a level of distrust people have with whatever officially is said by law enforcement about how he died, perhaps how Virginia died, if there's no more of an investigation into it? What is it about this story that just seems to just churn conspiracy theories?
Yeah, well, look, Epstein was obviously an incredibly powerful person who had access to the most powerful people in this country, including presidents. And so, all the financial wealthy people that he knew and hung around with and was associated with, and his own wealth. And so, the controversy around Epstein's suicide will go on for a long time, because there's a lot of questions about, whether he killed himself in jail, or whether he was killed by someone else to silence him. That's going to be going on for a long time. We'll probably never have an answer to that. And it's sad. You can see the trail of tragedy that he's left behind. And this is another example of it with Virginia Giuffre and all the turmoil in her life. And I think by all accounts, it seems as if she's either accidentally or maybe intentionally took her life. I don't think anyone's saying there's other people involved, but it's still a tragedy, and it shows you that these victims of abuse, even as they get older in life, they still experience the trauma. They still have a lot of issues that flow from it, and just because they receive some settlement, some monetary settlement, that does not cure all of their issues that they have in life by any means.
No, incredibly well put. Incredibly sad development in the story involving Virginia Giuffre. Civil trial attorney David Ring, it's always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
For On the Case presented by Law and Crime, I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.